So this is my very first time doing something like this as kind of an informal screen grab, so please bear with me if it's a little awkward at first. I'm picking up where I left off last time in the first post, except for this time around I'm going to be code casting the whole thing, so to speak. So the first gripe I have with this code is that I want to do a little bit of refactoring since I'm still green. And I'm going to extract a constant here and default to this constant for the board size. And so I'm going to call this, not surprisingly, board size. And what you're seeing there is Code Rush. That's what's letting me do these sort of slick looking refactorings. So from here, now that I've done all this with my test still green, I'm going to go and well, I'm actually going to flounder around a little bit because I did a pure kind of unadulterated coding session and now I'm re-recording over it as I watch it. So I am kind of making mistakes live and fumbling around, and you'll see that no coding effort is perfect. So what I'm really getting at wanting to do here is create a board coordinate. And what I was doing before was I wasn't sure when or how exactly I wanted to go about creating that, if I wanted to right click and put it somewhere. So I've decided what I'm going to do here is use Code Rush to let it define a constructor for me. Board coordinate is something that I want to be a value type, I believe, immutable once it's created. So I have it created, and I'm sort of struggling a little bit. I seem to think that there's a Code Rush way of doing this. I did at the time, but I couldn't remember it. I wanted to sort of neatly right-click on it and have a class created for it. Fumbled around with it a bit, couldn't make that happen, so I decided to just kind of stop wasting time and go off on my own and create it. You'll see me doing something there. I give it a strange name, and then I just paste the class in, and then I use the Code Rush refactoring to name the file. It's a little bit quicker than typing the file name out in that new class window. It's just one of the slight efficiency techniques I've picked up over the years. So now I have a non-compiling test, and what I'm going to need to do is refactor the method in question that I want to have board coordinate on. This is helping me get rid of a parameter in this method. Generally, I favor fewer parameters in any method, and so it's nice to get rid of one. 3 is a lot. 0 is good, 1 is good, 2 is okay, 3 is more than that, yikes. So now I'm basically going through as needed and refactoring where the board coordinate class would belong. And I'm fumbling around a bit with some of the particular rules of defining things in a struct and some things along this line. But the gist of it is I'm trying to get everything properly named and using the properties with the correct names and all that with this refactoring. Well, I should say making this test pass. So this isn't a refactoring per se. I've created a failing test that just has more ramifications than they might normally have. So what I've done is define an X property and a Y property, and now I seem to remember that there's various rules about when you have to initialize things with structs or something. I think this is probably not quite right just yet. I'm going to get some compiler error if memory serves, and that's why I probably have to go back and fiddle with it. These days I use Entity Framework a lot, so I don't typically create a lot of structs. And it seems to me this private set is going to be a no-go, and I'm going to have to create a backing store for them. If memory serves, yep. Oh no, that's a different compiler error. So I'll have to fix that first, going back and reworking this method signature to be in line with the new one, and then I'm probably going to find another compiler error once I try to do this. And I seem to remember the thing that's needed is to create backing stores, which is something I'll go ahead and do with Code Rush, I believe. That's something that's nice and handy, although in this case it creates something a little more verbose than I want, so I think probably for Y, I'll just do something else. Perhaps just write out the getter and setter as I go. This is kind of interesting doing this way. I do this for my Pluralsight videos, and it's a lot of cutting and editing. It's kind of a little bit liberating to just sort of freewheel over this for what it's worth. I'm having a good time with this. So yeah, just as I remember, it is a bit surreal watching myself code from a few days ago. So now I've got my backing stores, and I believe once I go and correct these this constructor that everything should be good, and I should be getting back on track here pretty soon. Now I think we'll have liftoff. Yep, there go the uncrunched dots, so that's what we're looking for. So now green tests, that's always good. It's time to move on to the next thing. Now what I want to do is move on over to the pawn class, and there are some things I really don't like about this. Going to get the file name straight first, but then there are these two asserts within a method, within a test method, which is generally really not a very good thing to do, and there's this awkward tuple construct that I've got in here. Something like tuple of int, if you see that getting passed around a lot, or if you see a lot of this, what I have here kind of with x coordinate and y coordinate, you see that's something that's going to wind up being in a lot of places. This is a code smell called primitive obsession, meaning that you're passing around sort of chunks of primitive types, integers, strings, that kind of thing, that really kind of want to be a class. And that's exactly what this kind of tuple int and methods taking two ints, these want to be board coordinate. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to write a test that asserts basically that get moves from is going to return a board coordinate instead of returning a tuple of int, which is fairly awkward, even though that's a cool type. So now I'm actually struggling a little bit, or was struggling a little bit as I was writing this, because I was confusing myself as to whether I needed to be changing the method signature or the return type. There's all these awkward pairs of ints everywhere, and so who can keep which one you're returning straight? And that's really these hidden micro confusions, if you will, is the hidden cost of having sort of dirty code. When you have dirty, confusing code like this everywhere, it's just death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to reading and refactoring your code. So it's always best to be clear. As you can see, eventually I figured it out. I want to be returning board coordinate. Although, to be honest, in get moves from, I probably want to be returning more than one board coordinate, but we'll get to that in a minute. So now I've got a failing test. And so I'm going to need to see what I can go about doing to make this pass. And I believe that what I'm doing here is getting lost in a bit of a blind alley and seeming to not really recall exactly what all needed to happen with overriding equals and get hash code and all that. I thought the problem here was the equality, which it turns out not to be. And like I said, I've been using entity framework a lot and not a whole lot of structures and values, so I don't remember off the top of my head what all goes into struct equality. And I will freely admit this right here. I am not encyclopedic when it comes to C# at all times. I'm not John Skeet. I don't have the specs in my head all the time, so I forget things like that. And that's really such a value of TDD when it comes to development for me, is I don't need to know all of that, because if I ever don't know how something works, I try it out. I run an experiment. I write a method. I see if the behavior in the course of my experiment is what I think, and I'm told that by red or green tests, and if it is, hey, great, I learned something, and if it's not, I correct and catch my mistake early. So I'm never really aiming at knowing everything or getting everything exactly right the first time. What I'm always after is incremental improvement. That's a really big deal to me. It helps keep me sane. So I come back out, and I see that my test is still failing if memory serves, and turns out it's because I'm doing something pretty stupid, such as life. I believe I have reversed the coordinates. Isn't it always something like that? So if I go back and change these to 2, 3, suddenly everything's green. Now I don't really know that I need that equals method, so what I'm going to do is flip back over there and see if I delete that override. Everything's still green, so life is good. That is an important point. If you write some code that you don't think is necessary, please, please, I beg you, delete it. Test it. Don't program by coincidence. Programming by coincidence is where you get something to work and you're not really sure why it worked and you just move on. Hey, everything's green, right? Let's go. We'll leave that equals method in there. Do we need it or not? Who knows? No, you don't want to do that. Know if you need it or not. Always know. So I deleted it. All the tests stayed green. I don't need it. Maybe I'll need it later, but I don't need it now. So having accomplished that, it's time to perhaps write another test here. So now, when I look at what's going on here, I see a method named getMovesFrom. And to be honest, it seems trivial, but naming is so important. GetMovesFrom is plural. And what that means is that it should be returning more than one thing. If you're only returning a board coordinate, make that singular. But what I'm going to go do here is type returns 2, 3 as first result, meaning potentially the first of many, or at least a collection or something of them. So, as one result, I renamed this meaning one of the results, not as in the only result, but one of the results should be this board coordinate in question rather than the only result. So I'm actually writing a parallel assert. When this looks good to me, I'm going to delete the other one. So I'm just going to write this test as if what it were returning was just a collection. Sometimes in test-driven development, you just imagine the world the way you wish it to be, and you go ahead with it. In fact, not just sometimes, all the time. So I want possible moves to be enumerable, so I just pretend it is. The compiler fails, and then I make the compiler work. So I just add yield there, and suddenly I think we're about to have a passing test once I correct the return type. So I'm going to return enumerable of board coordinate. And there's a green test. Hey, that's good. So should it be an iList? Should it be something else? I don't know right now. We'll figure all that out later. The important thing is we've got this test that's passing right now, and life is good. So I think this is a good point to wrap up. And I will be back with you on this series again next time.